What happens when America's sweetheart finds herself in the hot seat with questions she never saw coming? The answer might shock you. Carrie Underwood, the 7-time Grammy winner who rose from American Idol champion to country music royalty, sat down for what was supposed to be a lighthearted chat on Today with Jenna and Friends. Instead, what unfolded was one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. Before we dive into exactly what went wrong, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think really happened here. Now let's get into it. The studio lights were bright that morning, maybe a little too bright. Carrie walked onto the set wearing a cream-colored blazer and jeans, her signature blonde hair falling in perfect waves. She smiled that familiar smile, the one that had won over millions of fans, and took her seat on the pale blue couch across from Jenna Bush, Hager, and her co-host for the day, a relatively new face to the morning show circuit named Melissa Chen. The audience applauded warmly. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed fine. Jenna started with the usual pleasantries, asking Carrie about her latest tour and how she manages to balance her career with being a mom to 2 boys. Carrie answered with practiced ease, talking about the chaos of mornings and how she makes sure to be present for her kids despite her demanding schedule. The audience ate it up. Melissa nodded along, smiling. But there was something in her expression that seemed just a little off, a little too calculated. Then came the first shift in tone. Melissa leaned forward slightly, her smile tightening just at the edges, and said, "You know, Carrie, you've been in the spotlight for almost 2 decades now. That's a long time to maintain such a, let's say, carefully crafted image. Do you ever feel like you're performing even when you're not on stage?" The question hung in the air. Carrie's smile faltered for just a second before she recovered. "I mean, I think anyone in this industry has to be mindful of how they present themselves," she said carefully. "But I've always tried to be authentic with my fans. What they see is who I am." Melissa tilted her head, that smile still fixed in place. "Is it, though? Because there's this perception that you've built this almost untouchable persona. The perfect wife, the perfect mom, the perfect artist. Some might say it feels a little, I don't know, rehearsed?" You could feel the temperature in the room drop. Jenna's eyes widened slightly, and she jumped in quickly. "Well, I think Carrie has always been genuine in everything she does. That's why people connect with her music so deeply." She was trying to smooth things over, but Melissa wasn't letting it go. Sure, Melissa said, waving her hand dismissively. "But let's talk about the music for a second. Your last album didn't perform quite as well as your previous ones, did it? I mean, the numbers don't lie. Do you think maybe the country music audience is moving on from, well, your sound?" Carrie sat up straighter, her jaw tightening just slightly. "Every album has its own journey," she said, her voice still controlled but with an edge creeping in. "I'm proud of the work I put out, and my fans have been incredibly supportive." "Of course they have," Melissa said, nodding. "Your fans are loyal, no question. But we've seen other artists from your era kind of fade into the background while newer, fresher voices take over. Does that worry you, that maybe your time at the top is, coming to an end?" The audacity of the question sent a ripple through the audience. Someone gasped softly. Jenna looked like she wanted to disappear into the couch cushions. Carrie, to her credit, kept her composure, but you could see the fire building behind her eyes. "I think the beauty of this industry is that there's room for everyone," Carrie said, her words measured. "I've never seen it as a competition." End quote. 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 "I'm focused on creating music that matters to me and connecting with people who relate to it. That's always been my goal." Melissa leaned back, crossing her legs, clearly enjoying the tension she'd created. "That's a very diplomatic answer," she said. But come on, Carrie. You can be honest with us. It must sting a little to see younger artists getting all the attention, all the awards, while you're sort of, I don't know, being celebrated for what you did 10 years ago rather than what you're doing now. Carrie's smile was completely gone now. She looked directly at Melissa, and when she spoke, her voice was quieter but somehow more powerful. I don't measure my worth by other people's success or by comparing myself to artists who are just starting out. I've had an incredible career, and I'm nowhere near done. Of course not, Melissa said, though her tone suggested she didn't quite believe it. But, speaking of career longevity, let's talk about your personal life for a moment. You've been married for over a decade now, which in Hollywood terms is like a century. There have been rumors over the years, whispers about rough patches, about arguments. How do you respond to people who wonder if your marriage is as perfect as you make it seem? That was the line. That was the moment everything changed. Carrie's face went completely still, her expression unreadable. Jenna actually put her hand on Melissa's arm as if to physically stop her from going further, but it was too late. The question was out there. My marriage, Carrie said slowly, each word deliberate, is private. And it's strong. I don't owe anyone an explanation or a peek behind the curtain of my personal life. Melissa shrugged. I'm just saying. People talk. There are stories out there. As a public figure, don't you think you have some responsibility to address those stories rather than just brushing them off? Carrie shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. No, actually, I don't. I have a responsibility to my family, to my kids, to protect them from exactly this kind of invasive questioning. My personal life is not entertainment. But you chose this life, Melissa shot back. You chose to be in the spotlight. That comes with scrutiny. That comes with people wanting to know the truth behind the image. The audience was dead silent now. You could have heard a pin drop. Jenna tried once more to redirect. I think what's really exciting is Carrie's upcoming project, the one she's been teasing on social media. Can we talk about that? But Carrie wasn't interested in pivoting anymore. She was staring at Melissa with an intensity that could cut glass. The truth behind the image? She repeated. What exactly are you implying? That I'm lying to people? That my life is some kind of facade? Melissa held her ground. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking questions that I think a lot of people want answers to. You've built your brand on being this wholesome, relatable figure, but lately there's been talk that maybe things aren't as wholesome as they appear. The missed appearances, the canceled shows, the cryptic social media posts, people notice these things. Carrie stood up abruptly, her microphone still clipped to her blazer. I think we're done here, she said, her voice shaking slightly with barely contained anger. The audience gasped. Jenna stood up too, reaching out toward Carrie. Carrie, please, let's just take a breath and... But Carrie was already unhooking her microphone, her hands trembling. I came here for a conversation, not an interrogation. Not to have my character questioned and my private life dragged through the mud on national television. Melissa remained seated, that infuriating smile still on her face. I'm just doing my job, Carrie, asking the questions that people want answered. No, Carrie said firmly, dropping the microphone onto the couch. You're being disrespectful. There's a difference between journalism and cruelty, and you crossed that line about 5 questions ago. Jenna was practically panicking now, her hands gesturing frantically as she tried to salvage the situation. Carrie, I am so sorry. This was not supposed to go this way. Please, can we just start over? We can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Carrie turned to look at Jenna, and for a moment her expression softened. Jenna, you've always been kind to me. This isn't about you. But I'm not going to sit here and be attacked under the guise of entertainment. She glanced back at Melissa, who was now checking her nails, as if bored by the entire exchange. Some people clearly don't understand the difference between being provocative and being cruel. Melissa looked up, her eyes meeting Carrie's. Oh, I understand the difference perfectly. I also understand that you've spent years hiding behind this perfect image. And maybe it's time someone asked you the real questions, instead of lobbing you softballs about your favorite recipes and your workout routine. The producer was gesturing wildly from off camera, clearly signaling for a commercial break, but Melissa ignored him completely. Carrie stood there, her arms crossed, and you could see her making a decision. She could storm off right then, or she could say what she really wanted to say. She chose the latter. You want real questions? Carrie asked, her voice rising. Then let me ask you one. Who hurt you? What happened in your life that made you think this kind of behavior is acceptable? Because this isn't journalism. This isn't even good television. This is you taking out whatever personal issues you have on someone you don't even know. The audience was completely silent, every eye locked on the confrontation unfolding before them. Melissa's smile finally cracked, replaced by a flash of genuine anger. Don't try to psychoanalyze me, Carrie. I'm not the one who's been dodging difficult questions for 20 years. Difficult questions? Carrie laughed, but there was no humor in it. You asked me if my marriage was falling apart. You suggested my career was over. You implied I'm somehow fake or dishonest with my fans. Those aren't difficult questions. Those are attacks dressed up as questions. Melissa stood up now too, facing Carrie across the coffee table. If you can't handle tough questions, maybe you shouldn't be doing interviews. Maybe you should just stick to posting filtered photos on Instagram and pretending everything is perfect. Jenna stepped between them physically now, her voice desperate. Okay, we need to stop. Right now. This has gone way too far. She looked at Carrie with pleading eyes. Please, just sit down. We can fix this. But Carrie shook her head. There's nothing to fix, Jenna. This was clearly set up to be some kind of gotcha moment, and I'm not playing along. She looked directly into one of the cameras. To everyone watching, I'm sorry you had to see this. I came here to have a conversation, to connect with you all the way I always try to do. But I won't compromise my dignity or my family's privacy for ratings. Melissa scoffed. Oh, please, spare us the martyr routine. You're not walking off because of your dignity. You're walking off because you can't handle someone finally calling you out. Carrie turned back to her, and when she spoke, her voice was ice cold. Calling me out for what, exactly? For working hard? For protecting my family? For not airing every detail of my personal life for public consumption? If that makes me fake in your eyes, then I'll wear that label proudly. You're missing the point, Melissa said, moving around the coffee table to close the distance between them. Jenna tried to block her path, but Melissa sidestepped her. The point is that you've built an empire on being relatable, on being just like everyone else, but you're not. You live in a bubble of privilege and perfection, and you won't let anyone see the cracks. Carrie's eyes narrowed. You don't know anything about my life. You don't know what I've been through, what I've sacrificed, what I deal with behind closed doors. And you know what? You don't get to know. Nobody does, unless I choose to share it. That's not being fake. That's called having boundaries. The producer was now on set, trying to physically guide people off camera, but everyone was ignoring him. This had become something bigger than a failed interview. This was a battle of wills, a clash of philosophies about fame and privacy, and what public figures owe their audiences. Melissa crossed her arms, mirroring Carrie's stance. Boundaries are fine, but you can't have it both ways. You can't sell yourself as this open book, this friend to your fans, and then get defensive when someone asks you real questions. That's hypocritical. I have never claimed to be an open book, Carrie shot back. I share what I'm comfortable sharing. I connect with my fans through my music, through my performances, through the parts of my life I choose to make public. That doesn't give you or anyone else the right to demand access to everything. Jenna was nearly in tears now, looking back and forth between them. Can we please just end this? Carrie, you can leave if you want to. Melissa, we need to cut to commercial. This is insane. But Melissa wasn't done. You know what I think? I think you're scared. I think you've been coasting on your American Idol success for so long that you've forgotten how to be real, how to be vulnerable. And now when someone pushes back even a little, you fall apart. That struck a nerve. Carrie's face flushed, and she took a step closer to Melissa. I fall apart? Let me tell you something about falling apart. I've had miscarriages. I've dealt with health scares. I've faced criticism and scrutiny every single day of my career. I've been torn apart by people who don't know me, who make assumptions based on headlines and gossip. And through all of that, I kept going. I kept creating. I kept showing up for my fans and my family. So don't you dare stand there and tell me I'm scared or that I can't handle adversity. The raw emotion in Carrie's voice silenced everyone. Even Melissa seemed taken aback for a moment. The audience was riveted, some people with their hands over their mouths. This was no longer entertainment. This was watching someone defend their entire existence. Melissa recovered quickly, though, her expression hardening. That's all very touching, but it doesn't change the fact that you're running away right now. You're proving my point. The moment things get uncomfortable, you bolt. Carrie laughed, a sharp sound. I'm not running away. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever twisted game you're playing. There's a difference. Running away would be staying here and letting you continue to disrespect me for the sake of not making waves. Walking away is recognizing that I deserve better than this. Better than what? Melissa challenged. Better than honesty? Better than being held accountable? Accountable for what? Carrie's voice rose again. What have I done that requires accountability? I've made music. I've performed. I've been a wife and a mother. I've donated to charities. I've used my platform to support causes I believe in. What exactly do you think I need to answer for? Melissa smiled, and it was not a kind smile. Maybe for perpetuating impossible standards, for making other women feel like they're not enough, because they can't juggle everything as perfectly as you seem to. For presenting this image of having it all figured out when nobody does. Carrie stared at her, genuinely stunned. So now you're upset with me for, what, trying to do well at my job? For not publicly falling apart? That's absurd. I've never claimed to be perfect. I've never said I have everything figured out. I work hard. I do my best. And yes, I try to maintain some semblance of privacy and dignity. If that bothers you, that says more about you than it does about me. Jenna finally found her voice again. Melissa, I think you need to apologize. This has gone way beyond appropriate. But Melissa shook her head. I'm not apologizing for doing my job. If Carrie can't handle tough questions, that's on her. Tough questions? Carrie repeated incredulously. You questioned my marriage, my relevance, my authenticity? Those aren't tough questions. Those are personal attacks. And I'm done pretending there's any journalistic merit to what you're doing. The tension in the studio had reached a breaking point. Camera operators were frozen in place, unsure whether to keep filming or shut everything down. The audience sat in stunned silence, witnessing what would undoubtedly become one of the most talked-about moments in daytime television history. Carrie stood her ground, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths, while Melissa maintained her defiant posture, refusing to back down even as the situation spiraled further out of control. Melissa broke the silence first, her voice dripping with condescension. You know what's really interesting about all of this? Your reaction. If there was nothing to hide, if everything really was as perfect as you claim, you wouldn't be this defensive. Innocent people don't run from questions. Carrie's eyes flashed. I'm not running from questions. I'm refusing to engage with someone who clearly has an agenda. There's a massive difference. You didn't come into this interview wanting to have a conversation. You came in wanting to tear me down. And I'm not going to help you do it. Jenna was desperately trying to regain control, her voice shaking. We're going to take a break. We have to take a break right now. She looked at the control booth, making slashing motions across her throat, but the cameras kept rolling. Someone had made the decision to capture every second of this train wreck. Melissa ignored Jenna completely, keeping her focus locked on Carrie. An agenda? My agenda is the truth. My agenda is getting past the carefully constructed PR responses and the rehearsed sound bites. When was the last time you gave an honest answer in an interview? When was the last time you let people see the real you instead of the version your team has packaged and polished? Carrie took a deep breath, visibly trying to compose herself. You want honesty? Here's some honesty. I'm a human being. I have good days and bad days. I have moments of doubt and moments of confidence. I struggle with the same things everyone struggles with. But I also have children who have to go to school and face their classmates. I have a husband who didn't ask for his private life to be dissected on television. I have parents and siblings and friends who deserve to have boundaries respected. So yes, I'm careful about what I share. That's not being fake. That's being responsible. Melissa waved her hand dismissively. That's a very convenient excuse for maintaining a facade. You make millions of dollars off your image. Your fans buy your albums, your concert tickets, your merchandise. They invest in you emotionally and financially. Don't they deserve to know who you really are? They know who I am through my music, Carrie said firmly. Every album I've released has pieces of my heart in it. Every song tells a story. If people want to know me, they can listen. They don't need to know what I had for breakfast or whether I argued with my husband last Tuesday. Melissa leaned against the arm of the couch, her posture deliberately casual. But that's just it, isn't it? You want the adoration without the accountability. You want the platform without the scrutiny. You want to be America's sweetheart without anyone looking too closely at whether you actually deserve that title. The audience gasped at that. It was one thing to ask pointed questions, but Melissa had just openly questioned whether Carrie deserved the success and love she'd earned over nearly 2 decades. Carrie's face went pale, then flushed red. When she spoke, her voice was trembling with barely restrained fury. Deserve? I have worked my entire adult life to be where I am. I won a competition that millions of people auditioned for. I've released album after album that connected with people because the songs meant something. I've toured relentlessly, often being away from my family for months at a time. I've given interviews, signed autographs, taken photos, shown up for my fans, again and again and again. So don't you dare suggest I haven't earned what I have. Melissa shrugged, unmoved. Plenty of people work hard. That doesn't make them immune to criticism or questions. You're acting like you should be untouchable just because you've been successful. I'm not asking to be untouchable, Carrie said, her voice rising. I'm asking to be treated with basic human decency. There's a way to ask challenging questions without being cruel. There's a way to conduct an interview without it feeling like an ambush. You've crossed every line of professional conduct. And somehow, you're acting like I'm the problem for not just sitting here and taking it. Jenna stepped forward again, her face blotchy from stress. Carrie, please. I am so sorry. This was never supposed to happen. Melissa went completely off script. We had talking points. We had agreed upon topics, and none of this was part of the plan. Melissa turned to Jenna sharply. Off script? Since when do we need scripts to ask real questions? Since when did this show become just another promotional stop where celebrities get to control the narrative? Jenna looked at her with a mixture of shock and anger. Since we started respecting our guests, since we decided that ambushing people and attacking them wasn't the kind of show we wanted to be. You know what we discussed before Carrie got here. You agreed to keep things light and focus on her music and her tour. Melissa laughed bitterly. And that's exactly what's wrong with media today. Everyone's so afraid of offending celebrities that we've stopped doing actual journalism. We've become glorified publicists, just regurgitating whatever talking points their teams feed us. Carrie shook her head slowly. You think this is journalism? You think personally attacking someone and making baseless insinuations about their marriage and career is journalism? That's not journalism. That's tabloid garbage. Real journalists do research. They ask informed questions. They challenge people on facts and policies and actions. You didn't do any of that. You just tried to hurt me for sport. The producer was now on set, physically trying to guide Melissa away from the scene, but she shook him off. I tried to get you to be real for once in your life. I tried to break through the armor you've built around yourself, and the fact that you're reacting this way proves that I touched a nerve. Carrie's laugh was hollow. You didn't touch a nerve. You crossed a line. And you know what? I feel sorry for you. I really do. Because somewhere along the way, you confused cruelty with bravery. You convinced yourself that attacking people makes you a truth teller. But all you've done here today is show everyone watching what kind of person you really are. Melissa's face twisted with anger. And what kind of person is that? Someone who tears others down to feel powerful? Carrie said quietly. Someone who mistakes meanness for strength. Someone who apparently has so little going on in their own life that they need to try to destroy someone else's just to feel relevant. That hit home. Melissa's face went red, and for the first time, she seemed genuinely rattled. You don't know anything about me or my life. Carrie smiled sadly. No, I don't, and I wouldn't presume to. Because unlike you, I understand that everyone has their own struggles, their own story, their own reasons for being who they are. I would never stand here and attack you the way you've attacked me, even though you've given me plenty of ammunition in the last 15 minutes. Jenna was crying now, mascara running down her face. Please, can we just end this? Carrie, you can go. I will personally apologize to your team and to you privately. This should never have happened. Carrie turned to Jenna and touched her arm gently. Jenna, this isn't your fault. You've always been nothing but professional and kind. I hope we can work together again someday, under very different circumstances. She glanced one last time at Melissa, who was now being spoken to urgently by multiple producers. As for you, I genuinely hope you figure out whatever it is that's making you so angry at the world. Life's too short to spend it trying to hurt people. With that, Carrie walked toward the edge of the set. The cameras followed her every step. She didn't storm off dramatically, didn't slam anything, or make a scene. She simply walked away with her head held high, her dignity intact despite everything that had just transpired. Just before she disappeared behind the curtain, she turned back one more time. To anyone watching who feels like they have to share every part of their life to be valid, you don't. To anyone who's ever been made to feel like protecting your peace and your privacy makes you fake, it doesn't. And to everyone who supported me over the years, thank you for understanding that I'm human, that I'm doing my best, and that sometimes the most authentic thing you can do is walk away from something that doesn't serve you. Then, she was gone. The studio erupted into chaos. Melissa stood there looking shell-shocked, as if she couldn't quite believe what had just happened. Jenna sank onto the couch, her head in her hands. The producers were shouting instructions. And somewhere, millions of viewers sat at home, their morning coffee forgotten, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. So what do you think really happened here? Was Melissa out of line, or was she just asking the questions everyone wanted answered? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the latest celebrity news and drama. Let us know, do you think Carrie was right to walk off, or should she have stayed and defended herself more? Comment your answer, and we'll see you in the next video.